Picture this. You're a child again. You're in front of your PS2 or GameCube. You have the controller in your hand, ready to play a superhero game. Or, picture this. You're a child, and you're eating your favorite cereal in front of the TV, and in seconds, the commercial is over, and this starts playing. X-Men is the greatest superhero team. Growing up, there was many great superhero shows to games, but what stuck out to me the most was X-Men Legends. X-Men Legends is a very important game from my childhood. I didn't watch X-Men from the 90s when I was a kid, but I did watch it when I got older, and man, this show nearly is up there with the Batman animated series. It covers so many great themes along with great lore, voice acting. Every episode had an important theme going for it. But going back to X-Men Legends, this is the game I played when I was a kid. It was filled with great love for the source, so many characters that play fun and different. This is what I call a love letter to the X-Men. So let's get into what made this game so great. The story starts off with the news broadcasting the mutant problem around the world, when suddenly breaking news happens when a young woman called Allison Cressmere, aka in the comics known as Magma, is found out to be a mutant. A mob is all around her as the Genetic Research Security Organization is dragging her away, when we soon find out that the security guard holding her is no other than Mystique, the shape-shifting master herself. The Blob helps Mystique, but then Wolverine appears trying to stop them, but Allison freaks out suddenly.
Stop! Stop fighting! Stop it right now! Stop!
Unable to contain her powers go haywire, causing destruction everywhere, which causes her to pass out. Blob carries her away with Mystique, completing their unknown mission, and this is how our story starts, with no other than Wolverine, aka James Howlett, who is chasing down Mystique and Blob, but first has to fight his way through the Anti-Mutant Military Corps, aka the GRSO we should be calling them here, who play a huge part in this story. But anyways, Wolverine finally catches up to Mystique, where he fights her and wins the battle. He questions Mystique about where Blob took the girl, but no answer. He even questions Mystique about what's so special about her. Still no answer. So Wolverine proceeds on when he runs into the real Cyclops, who Mystique was shape-shifting, confusing Wolverine as, in which both team up, and this is where Wolverine and Cyclops finally catch up to the Blob, who has Allison, until Allison breaks free, punching his fat back, or part of his fat stomach, and this is the second boss fight against Blob. I do a piss poor job in managing Cyclops' help in the fight, but at the end of the day, I paved through it with Wolverine defeating Blob. That is when they save Allison, but must get to Rendezvous and get to the X-Jet, in which they do.
Right. Will do.
Why is all this happening to me?
Allison, it's okay.
Things were fine until last week. I got mad at my little brother and suddenly the ground started to shake. I knew it was my fault, but I didn't want to admit it.
Your powers are becoming active, which...
Things have only gotten worse. That lava in the street? I made it happen. I'm becoming a mutant.
There's nothing wrong with...
And that woman? She was gonna make me join something called the Brotherhood. She could come after me again. Anytime!
Allison, you couldn't be in safer hands. We're the X-Men.
Back at the X-Mansion, Allison struggles to understand her powers. and wonders why this is happening to her. And it must be pretty tough to be a normal teen just going to school, enjoying your normal everyday life until you discover you have mutant powers. Within seconds in the universe, a teen's life can change quickly. Jean Grey tries to help her through her struggles, telling her that accidents happen as a mutant, and tells her she is in safe hands here at the X Mansion, aka Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. Allison is welcomed by no other than Professor X, where he gives her the rundown of things, and that is when you get a tour from Jean Grey and Professor X around the X Mansion, where you learn about most of the X-Men, which include Rogue, the Wild Child, Aurora Monroe, Storm, second in command of the X-Men, Bobby Drake, Iceman, the Womanizer, the Charmer, the Lady Lover, Wolverine James Howlett, the Near Immortal Man, Peter Rasputin, the Russian with size 18 feet, aka Colossus, Scott Summers, Cyclops, the leader of the X-Men and lover of Jean Grey, and last but not least, Hank McCoy, the Blue Beast and the smartest man of the X-Men. The tour is refreshing. It gives great backstory and detail of the X-Men and the X-Mansion itself. The rooms you enter are filled with lore, to quizzes to comic book collections. It's really a fun time in this little hub. But that is when you move to the X-Men sub-basement, where Professor X gives you a tour of places such as the War Room, Danger Room, the prison, and other rooms. But anyways, the next mission begins in Alaska, going to the HAARP facility. The X-Men must shut down the outer perimeter transformers that power the surveillance system. I complete the first part by destroying the transformers, which gets me into the facility, and the X-Men begin to fight their way through the facility. That is when they run into one of the lab coats. Not until they reveal themselves to be Mystique, along with Toad. But then Mystique calls in Pyro to take the X-Men out, and that begins our next boss fight. Pyro is defeated in a bit of a tough fight that needed Iceman, but now they continue the chase after Toad and Mystique, and that's when they run right into Toad.
Back here, you twits! Bloody hell. That's the third flipping time this month.
The next boss fight begins. The boss fight is basically destroy each jet Toad is trying to escape and defeat him in the process.
Booyah!
You bet. Will do. Will do.
Oh, a fine bunch of superheroes you are, eh? The entire lot of you knocking on me. That's oddly fair.
The X-Men defeat Toad and have him surrounded for questioning. They throw a bunch of questions at him like, why is the Brotherhood at the HAARP facility? Why did Toad mention Sentinels when they first ran into him with Mystique? They soon get the answers with more threats as Toad caves in and tells them,
Okay, look, Mystique wanted a location that was stored on the computers here.
Toad has no idea why Mystique wanted what she wanted, but she said apparently that the day of reckoning is coming soon. They imprison Toad, and now the second mission is now complete, and we are back at the Xavier Institute, where Allison is in her thoughts about this all, wondering if she should stay here, contemplating leaving the X-Mansion due to worry about her life, her family.
Well, since I came to the Institute, I still haven't decided whether I want to stay or not. But Bobby Drake sure makes it seem awfully inviting. It was exciting hearing about the X-Men's adventures at the HARP facility in Alaska. Part of me wishes I could have gone with them. I guess I'm getting caught up in all this X-Men superhero business.
The other side of her wants to stay, but soon Allison ends up running into Jubilee in the front lawn of the X-Mansion. It's a great introduction for Jubilee, giving you a nice little backstory of her living in the Hollywood Mall, how the security hired mutant hunters to take her down until the X-Men came in and rescued her. She also tells Allison about her firework explosion abilities, a nice little chat with a new face you meet and unlock as a playable character. Allison gets back into the mansion when Nightcrawler teleports in front of her.
Guten Tag, Fräulein Krestmir. 1,000 pardons. I did not mean to scare you.
Surprising her and greeting her all in one. He tells her about himself and his circus background and his faith in God, which is a big important part of Nightcrawler. Allison asks Nightcrawler about the Sentinels when Nightcrawler gives her a past story of the X-Men, and that's when we unlock a past mission, aka flashback mission, where the X-Men are in New York fighting off the Sentinels around the city. A difficult mission, somewhat, and also awesome, as you get to play with Cyclops, Jean Grey, Nightcrawler, and Wolverine, all in their classic costumes. After the flashback mission, we head into the sub-basement, where Allison is greeted by an imprisoned Toad.
Hello, little girl. Come to talk to Toad, have you?
I don't know if I should.
Come now, dearie. Surely you're not frightened of poor old Toad.
He tries to intimidate her and smooth talk her, but she stands her ground as we get a little background about Toad. He tries to barter his way out, but Allison refuses to help him. Allison questions why Toad would take this abuse from the Brotherhood, who has left him all by himself. Toad is convinced they are his friends and family, and it's somewhat understandable yet sad. Allison heads to the danger room and tells Xavier that she decided to become a student at the school. Professor Xavier is happy. She accepted, and now he wants her to test her abilities in the danger room. Allison is afraid of what will happen if she fails, but Xavier tells her it's all a mean to measure the full extent of her powers, so he knows how to deal with her particular needs.
There is no grade for this test. It's merely a means to measure the full extent of your powers. That way we'll know better how to deal with your particular needs.
Allison agrees to enter the danger room, and she's nailing it. As Cyclops, Wolverine, Xavier all watch her, Allison begins to become overwhelmed in the danger room though, and the safety protocol is failing.
The kid's got potential.
Indeed.
Professor, the safety protocols are failing. I'm getting her out of there.
Wait.
What just happened?
Am I in trouble?
Not at all, my child. Scott?
Professor, I haven't seen energy readings like this since...
The Phoenix.
Allison is upset. She's afraid to use her powers again after what happened. Xavier tells her she must try again to master her power, but Allison still has a refusal to use her powers. She wants to think things over about the decision to go back into the danger room. Allison explores more of the sub-basement where she runs into Hank McCoy, aka Beast. He greets her and knows what happened in the danger room. He tells her there's nothing to worry about, as this is nothing new with the danger room, and Allison is worried that she will never learn to control her powers.
Every X-Man felt that way initially. Some of us are still struggling for control.
Don't kid me. I can see it's all a breeze to you guys. You don't have any...
I beg to differ. Rogue will never know the touch of another person. Cyclops will be forever cursed to wear his visor.
Beast gives her hope and tells her that every X-Men has struggled through this journey. Beast tells her that though X-Men have control of their powers, they have life-altering decisions that have been made to them, and that they will never be able to mend or heal. This was one of my favorite moments in the game, due to Beast telling a newcomer what the members of X-Men had to endure, had to overcome, and still struggle to deal with every day as a mutant. It was a perfect conversation, but back to the story. We head over to the war room where we get to our next mission. Gambit is in trouble and the Morlocks have him. The tribe of mutants that live in the sewers have built a secret society and is hostile to any outsiders. A very interesting group of mutants who have gave up on living with the rest of the population, and it's kinda sad to hear. This mission is headed to the old sewers of New York where we must find out what happened to Gambit. The mission begins with a fight through hell against the Morlocks in the sewers, and they have some beefy ass dudes throughout the map. And the most annoying part of facing the Morlocks is the reviving Morlock, aka the Morlock Lieutenant, or the Morlock Witches, using that weird black magic to revive the other Morlocks. But we make it through to the center of the sewers, where we find the woman in charge. Morrow, she calls herself. She's upset they are here, and as we question where Gambit went, Marrow has no idea where Gambit is. She begins to throw out insults and tells them they have no idea what's it like to be in the dark world. The X-Men try to explain they can live in peace with the humans as they do, but Marrow refuses to believe their words, and that is when she's done talking, and gives out a threat that the Morlocks will soon be treated as equals to those that walk in the sunlight. Afterwards, we speak to the Morlock healer. He's a charming old man who is a healer and a spiritual leader of the Morlocks. He cares deeply for his people and heals them with his craft. The X-Men question him about where a mutant named Gambit is. He says it's forbidden to speak of the subject, and he warns them to be wary should you search our tunnels for the Kajun's thief. The X-Men know what they got themselves into as they go deeper into the tunnels of the sewers, and through a insane fight, and one of the hardest fights in this game, we finally get through and find Gambit in a cage, prisoned by no other than Morrow herself.
Bonjour, mes amis. Oh, I'm fine. It's good to know a man can count on his friends.
This begins a boss fight, and Marrow packs a goddamn punch. Those knife-like projectiles did some heavy damage, but at the end of the day, the X-Men defeat her. She yields and gives the reason why they captured him. Morrow saw Gambit spying on them, and she can't let a 2-bit thief complicating her plans. She lets go of the Cajun thief, but warns them the next time won't be so pleasant. The X-Men speak to Gambit on why he was spying on the Morlocks, and Gambit was hearing that the Morlocks were getting cozy with the Brotherhood. Overall, we rescue Gambit and the mission is complete, and in the X-Jet, Xavier speaks to his X-Men about the data gained at the facility, aka the HAARP facility, and believe that he knows where the Brotherhood will strike next, which is the USS Arbiter. Storm has a hunch that they might be keeping Magneto there. Xavier hopes not, and has the utmost confidence that the X-Men will stop Brotherhood in whatever plan they have in store. The X-Men land on the USS Arbiter, where they are met by enemies of the GRSO and Sentinels on the Arbiter, which means Toad was right. They are building Sentinels here. This is the first time where you fight the Sentinels outside of the flashback mission, as you make your way through the Arbiter fighting off the GRSO and Sentinels and destroying their launching platforms to keep them from spawning over and over again. The X-Men make it inside the ship where there seems to be malfunctions. The ship is sinking, all due to the Blob. He's destroying the ship's generators and is cracking the hull in the process. With Jean Grey's telekinetic power, she holds the ship up for a short time until the X-Men can get all the Arbiter crew to safety. The X-Men get the Arbiter crew out safely when Jean Grey warns them that she cannot keep the ship afloat any longer and they need to leave immediately before they end up drowning with the ship. The GRSO are locked onto a hallway fight with Blob when Mystique sneaks by and gets into a secret passage they were protecting. She uses her shapeshift ability to unlock the hand scanner door, where she finds Magneto himself, who was being harbored and tortured, and rescues him. The leader of the Brotherhood is free from the GRSO, and Magneto is ready to put things in order.
All corners of the land, for he shall come forth and wage war upon our enemies. The worthy will rise up to usher in a new age. Like gods they will be.
It is time to set my house in order.
Later on, the RNVN News' Deborah Owens covers the news on TV about the terrorist group the Brotherhood until Magneto takes over the TV station transmission.
Homo sapiens, we stand upon the edge of a brave new world, and evolution has found you lacking. I invite all mutants to congregate at the Mount. Together we will force the Homo sapiens to make way for their true masters, Homo superior.
Back at the X-Mansion, Allison is back in her diary again in her thoughts about how tense the mansion has become due to Magneto being freed. Allison, even with the stress of things, she's starting to feel like she's at home with the mansion, you know? She feels like the mansion is her home away from home. Allison heads to the sub-basement where she speaks to Beast about Magneto. Beast explains to her who and what Magneto can do and what he schemes. As we know, we get a rundown of Magneto still being angry and haunted by the Holocaust and what humans did to his family, his people. Allison heads to the danger room after, where she is greeted by Storm and Wolverine. Allison once again tries to apologize about the danger room, but Wolverine and Storm both agree this is not a first and that is not a big deal. After all, as Xavier said previously, this is a learning process to being a mutant. They want Allison to go back into the danger room again, and Allison agrees to give it a try. And this time in the danger room, Magma, aka Allison, is going through the first mission in some sort of virtual reality mission, where instead of being Wolverine this time, Allison is who you control. And as you go through the first mission again, but this time as Allison, you face off against Mystique. With confidence from her peers, Allison beats Mystique. She celebrates, but Wolverine tells her she still has one more battle as she goes forth and to face Blob. And she succeeds, beating Blob without destroying the danger room, getting control of her powers. Allison gets high praise from Storm, Cyclops, Wolverine, and Xavier. Xavier tells her she's showing vast improvements in controlling her powers. Xavier even wants her to have a real combat, which means Allison Cressmere becomes a official X-Men here. Allison gets suggestions for her name, which Wolverine jokingly calls her Pebbles, which becomes sort of a friendly nickname between her and Wolverine. But Allison claims the name Magma for herself. Later on, Allison goes to the X-Jet hangar where she runs into Wolverine, where she speaks to Wolverine about his past and why he's a man of mystery. And this is where we go into the past, being Weapon X, being tortured in that Weapon X facility. This is where we get a flashback mission, where we play as Weapon X, aka Wolverine. This is a pretty cool mission because you get the Weapon X outfit in it as well. And you play with the fan favorite Wolverine, and let's face it, Wolverine is the most fun character in this game for most people. This is a pretty brutal mission because you basically slaughter everyone throughout the facility. No mercy was given, but after the flashback, I head to the next mission where Xavier gathers the X-Men as well as the new official X-Men Magma. Professor Xavier has discovered that the Brotherhood is on the move again to a potential catastrophic location, that is the Boshnoi nuclear plant in Siberia, and tells them that the Brotherhood need to be stopped or they may very well have to contain a nuclear meltdown. The X-Men arrive at the nuclear plant where they head in and stop in front of a lab tech who begs for his life, thinking they are the Brotherhood due to them all being mutants. The X-Men tell him that they are after the mutants who are attacking here and tells him if he knows where they are. The lab tech says in Russian, "Niet," that they have gone, except the metal one, and this is when we get our next unlockable X-Men. The lab tech says that he is at the nuclear core and gives a metaphor that he is eating it like a bear with honey. The X-Men head to the nuclear core where it's met in front of another lab tech who says he needs their help, that the reactor is overheating and will melt down soon. The X-Men must make their way to the controls for the coolant valves and all of them must be activated. So before we can reach the metal one, we must activate these valves, and that we do, in which we finally get to the nuclear core, in which we see the metal one, aka Colossus, the Russian X-Men. He tells them that he does not know how much longer he can hold the reactor. He tells them he needs them to repair the brackets that hold the regulator in place, or thousands will die. The X-Men are successful in saving Colossus and the nuclear plant, and the X-Men want to know what happened here, as Colossus says it was Magneto and a group that he calls his acolytes, and another man by Magneto's side who manipulated the radiation so that Magneto would not be harmed while he was within the reactor. Colossus overheard the acolytes talking, and that Magneto is creating some type of material that generated gravitic ions. The X-Men want to hurry to get this info to Xavier, but Colossus refuses to go due to his sister Ileana, who has fallen ill and will not leave her side. The X-Men should suggest that they could take her to Muir Island and that Mora and Forge could help with that illness. Colossus agrees with the idea and goes with the X-Men immediately. Mora says to Colossus this is an unusual case as to why she's in a coma and why her body is slowly shutting down. Mora says there's help as Forge is making a life support device to keep her alive. This is when Allison speaks to Forge after the X-Men mission. Forge is a man who can build any type of equipment with his mutant powers. Forge asks Allison a big favor and tells her if she minds manually rebooting the Institute's supercomputer and that he needs it to program the life support system he built for Ileana. Allison at first is frightened due to this and is held with such a big responsibility, but is ready to go forth with the favor and she succeeds. Ileana's life signs are stabilizing and that Forge says Allison is a real hero in this all. Allison completes her first solo task, and this task was special because that's what the X-Men is all about, saving lives. And Allison got her first responsibility of rescuing someone, and not just anyone, Ileana, and that is magic in the Marvel Universe. The group arrives back at the X-Mansion where Allison is greeted by a mysterious woman who is no other than Emma Frost, the seductive, the smart, the White Queen herself, who holds immense psychic talents. Allison gets information about her and about this astral plane that Xavier speaks of, as Emma Frost has a very important mission later on. Beast calls forth the X-Men in a mysterious meeting, and Beast says that he fears that they are about to come under attack from cloaked invaders and that someone is attempting to access the Xavier protocols, which contain information on every known mutant in the world. Beast has no idea who it is and he cannot detect anyone, but he has a hunch that these enemies around are cloaked, and that's when we go around the X-Mansion, searching around for enemies, and that is when they are met by the GRSO once more. The X-Men take out the invaders, and back at the sub-basement, Cyclops says the GRSO soldiers had some of the most advanced gear and that they were trained to battle mutants. Beast has information from the gear of the GRSO, and the location all routes back to Canada, and not just Canada, the same place where the Weapon X project was carried out many years ago. Wolverine leaves to the place in a hurry without everyone else. And as Wolverine handles that mission, Xavier calls a meeting to inform everyone that him, Jean Grey, and Emma Frost will be taking a trip to the astral plane. Allison questions why, and Xavier lets Mora answer that as Mora discovered the cause of Ileana's coma, who is Colossus' sister. Allison questions why, and Xavier lets Mora answer that the cause of Ileana's coma is in that astral plane. They make it into the astral plane, which is a dimension of existence bordering on the edge of thought. It's based entirely on metaphor, so a person who needs emotional protection would be covered in armor, and a person who wishes to be silent would be surrounded by a wall. Basically a dream where everything has an alternate and deeper meaning. Now that we got that in our thoughts, back to the mission, where Xavier, Jean Grey, and Emma Frost are in the astral plane, where Professor X can feel Ileana's mind here. Emma Frost says this does not make sense. How could a non-telepathic mutant become trapped on the astral plane? Which Xavier does not even know the answer to himself. The X-Men travel through the astral plane as we are met by these weird shadowy creatures with claws called astral fiends, and we go through them taking them out, but the area begins to crumble apart.
We must escape.
This way! Who's doing this?
I pray it's not whom I suspect. Quickly, that portal will take you to Ileana.
We're not leaving without you, Professor. Don't be a fool, girl. We must escape.
Get out! Show yourself, Shadow King. I know it's you.
Hello, Xavier. I'm impressed you remember me.
I'd never forget the true face of evil.
I have to give him credit. The brat Ileana served her purpose.
Give who credit? Someone told you to kidnap Ileana?
No one would dare give an order to Shadow King. I was advised that stealing the child would lure you into my world. And here you are.
What do you intend to do now?
I should have thought it obvious, Xavier. I will have my revenge.
And that is when we're back to Jean Grey and Emma Frost still in the astral plane, but on the route to save Ileana. And that they do as they finally find Ileana being surrounded by Astral Warden and his fiends. Emma and Jean Grey take them out and help Ileana escape the astral plane. Ileana is saved, and we are on to the next mission, where Cyclops is at the Weapon X facility. It's a pretty long one as you take out patrol drones and run into none other than Havoc, aka Cyclops' brother. We find out Cyclops came to the facility because he was asked by his brother Havoc to come alone. Cyclops tells him to cut the small talk and tells him what this place is, and Havoc says this is Canada's defense ministry, and that he has word that they were running a secret facility here, something to do with mutants. And as we know from the flashback Wolverine mission, this is where they research tortured mutants, such as Wolverine himself. Cyclops questioned the we, as Havoc says he joined the Brotherhood, and Cyclops catches on that he was the one protecting Magneto from the radiation at the Russian nuclear plant in Siberia. Cyclops and Havoc argue about the Brotherhood as Havoc says he brought Cyclops here to show him humans think of them as animals they can dissect and put in cages. Cyclops says that their mother and father were human and that not all humans are like this. The argument gets tense and turns into a brawl between brothers. This begins a small little cool boss fight where both their powers are useless against each other because it nullifies each other. I had to beat him up with my fists, of course, and throwing barrels and objects at him to win. The fight stops quick though as Wolverine interrupts and tells him that Havoc is right. They were experimenting on mutants and Wolverine is the proof. He tells them if someone has the bright idea to reopen this place, that he's ready to basically change their mind. AKA Wolverine's gonna claw their ass up and slice and dice them. So Cyclops, Havoc, and Wolverine begin to go through the place fighting alongside each other. And that's when we run into the GRSO soldiers deep in the facility. We fight our way through some even strong variations of the soldiers when we run into a lab tech in this facility, as he says don't harm the Astral Gate he made, it's his life work. The X-Men force him to tell them what the Astral Gate is and is threatened by Havoc to tell him as the lab tech tells him what this machine does. The X-Men agree they could use a machine like this. The X-Men begin to free the mutants they had in this facility, which are Morlocks. Cyclops tells a freed Morlock what's going on here. And the Morlock explains they're experimenting on them and treat them like lab rats. Wolverine says who's doing this, and the Morlock says a general, and he's an American, part of something called Operation Vigilance. And he explains more who it is, and that is General Kincaid is the one in charge of this slaughterhouse, and he called mutants a plague, said he was going to make sure they never threaten the security of mankind again. Cyclops tells Wolverine to let's head back to the mansion as they have a lot to tell Professor X about the Operation Vigilance program. Havoc says he's not going with them and that they should really listen to what Magneto has to say and that he intends to get mutants the respect they deserve. There seems to be no changing Havoc's mind as he leaves. Back at the X Mansion, Jean Grey and Emma Frost tell Cyclops and Wolverine that Shadow King has Professor Xavier, but is soon interrupted by Magneto, who demands a word with Xavier. The X-Men split into two teams as the first team meet Magneto in the mansion's front lawn. Magneto tells the X-Men about the torture chambers Havoc uncovered in Canada, and that should prove that humans see them as animals. The X-Men understand and say they know what a few misguided monsters would do when filled with hate rather than reason. Magneto scoffs at this and says Xavier has them brainwashed and that Magneto has their prisoner who is Toad, who is now free now. Magneto then says he comes to offer them a chance to redeem themselves as Homo superiors and join him. Battle lines have been drawn and the time for war is near. Magneto says that he has restored his headquarters on Asteroid M and will create a new world order, one where mutants take their rightful place as gods at the top of the genetic food chain. Magneto and the X-Men are soon interrupted by Sentinels by General Kincaid, who is the military leader who goes rogue on his pursuit to oppress the mutant race. The X-Men and Brotherhood band together and fight the Sentinels.
Oh yeah, just 5 left.
Cease all mutant.
You see? violence is all humanity has to offer us.
Doesn't he ever shut up?
Look!
No! Main target acquired. Primary objective secured. Withdrawn.
Follow them! X-Men, no! We need to regroup.
The X-Men regroups in the war room where the X-Men managed to track down Havoc and the Acolytes shortly after they left the mansion, with Beast using the satellite technology of the sub-basement to determine their location, which is on Asteroid M, in which they think that the Mount Magneto refers to as codename for Asteroid M, aka Magneto's home base, a space station built in the core of an asteroid that's magnetically suspended miles above the Earth. Beast explains the asteroid is shielded both magnetically and psionically, which makes going onto the X-Jet useless, in which the team ponder how the Brotherhood gets on the asteroid, and that is when Gambit says out loud the Morlocks. And he says he heard them talking before they kidnapped him, that the Mount is not Magneto's base, as X-Men thought. The Mount is on Earth, which is the teleporter to get to the Asteroid M base. The X-Men pay a visit to the Morlocks, in which they begin to question some of the Morlocks about where the healer is, and the Morlock says he went to visit Marrow hours ago, but he hasn't come back since. Apparently the healer was pretty upset with the Morlocks working with the Brotherhood. The team assumes Marrow has him imprisoned for disobedience. The Morlock is further questioning. The X-Men further question the Morlock, asking where Marrow is. He does not know, but says she took a small army with her and formed a group called the Gene Nation, in which the Morlock thinks the Marrow hopes to get a piece of the action when the Brotherhood take over the world, and that she's fed up with her people being forced to live in the sewers. The X-Men travel further in the sewers to find the healer imprisoned. They release him from the cage, and the healer explains that Marrow is working with the Brotherhood as initially thought, and that she helps them get to a place called the Mount. From there, they are transported to Magneto's base. X-Men ask him how they are getting them to the Mount, in which the healer explains they are using something called the Gateway. The healer has no idea what it is, as he says it's in the room nearby. The X-Men go into that room as they are standing in front of a man in underwear. They say who he is, in which the man does not reply to it, as X-Men beg him to get them to the Mount, explaining Magneto is going to start a war. The man sits down cross-legged, puts his hand into the air and concentrates as he opens a portal of light, in which the X-Men take the portal, which teleports them to the base. The X-Men begin to investigate the area, running into Acolyte members until they run into Avalanche and Sabretooth of the Brotherhood, in which Avalanche explains they're moving new recruits to the Mount, in which they explain the man who teleported them, Gateway, is not powerful enough to reach that far and to get into Asteroid M. This is where the X-Men fight Sabretooth and Avalanche. Though victorious in the fight, Avalanche and Sabretooth flee into the portal, in which Avalanche breaks the ground below the teleporter before entering, breaking the ground and having the machine crumble into the lava, escaping and ruining any chance of the X-Men getting into that Magneto base. Further into the story, General Kincaid, the military leader, is giving a speech, telling everyone in the room there is no negotiating with the mutant blight. Kincaid goes on, offering a way to eradicate it before they...
You have the audacity
Silence, human! Your plans to destroy mutant kind will not come to fruition. This pitiful attempt failed, but it has sealed your fate. Let your followers know that it was you who set this war in motion, and let their anguished cries keep you warm in the days to come.
Magneto floats off back to Asteroid M. As Havoc and Magneto begin to argue, Havoc is saying that this is not going the way they plan and that using the Gravitron is madness. Magneto says let madness be the mother of change in response. Havoc tries to stop Magneto but proves useless with the blob grabbing and suspending Havoc. Magneto gets into the Gravitron machine, covering Earth in nothing but asteroids. We head back to the RVN news with Deborah Owens, as it's been 2 weeks since Magneto used his powers to encircle the Earth with asteroids, and that 90% of the sun's energy is being blocked from Earth's atmosphere. As a result, there has been a 20-degree drop in the world's median temperature. Deborah goes on to say at the UN, world leaders spoke out denouncing Magneto as barbaric and calling for retaliatory action, and that the president has stated that military forces have focused their attention on finding Magneto's base.
Citizens of Earth, I am Magneto. I have 3 demands which must be met unconditionally. First, all anti-mutant programs are to be terminated immediately. Second, the island of Genosha in the Indian Ocean will be granted to me as a sovereign nation. Finally, General William Kincaid will be handed over to me for trial under mutant law. If my demands are met, the sun will shine again. If I am defied, the chill you feel now will become the endless winter of your discontent. The choice is yours.
The X-Men are once again in the briefing room, where Cyclops explains that there's violence all over the city in which mutants are fighting with humans all across New York, and that the Sentinels have begun openly hunting mutants in New York City. And not only that, the GRSO soldiers are attacking the Morlocks in the sewer tunnels. The X-Men agree to help the Morlocks with a plan to meet the healer in the sewers, until they are interrupted by someone saying Juggernaut is on a rampage and they need help. The X-Men split into group of 3s as we first stop the Sentinels from their attack in New York, along with helping the injured. During the mission, a Sentinel is trying to attack a little kid, in which the X-Men stop the Sentinel from harming the kid. The X-Men walk up to the kid, who is no other than Bishop, yes, the Bishop of the X-Men. This is a great little cameo and foreshadowing to meet Bishop and his role he will play in X-Men Legends 2. But anyways, the mission is complete, and now the second mission is headed to the sewers, in which X-Men meet up with the healer of the Morlocks. He explains Meryl and her G Nation followers left them, and that the Brotherhood promised her a chance to live in the sunlight, and it proved to be too tempting. The X-Men help the Morlocks by taking out the GRSO soldiers and closing the tunnels. The task is completed, and the healer of the Morlocks thanks the X-Men for what they did, as Morlock gives us the instructions to where Meryl is. I head to the finale of the mission where Meryl is. The X-Men are there and want to talk to Meryl, but she's done talking and has had enough of their interruptions. That is when the boss fight happens. A bit of a tough boss fight, because as I keep beating Meryl, I notice she ends up getting up and keeps getting revived. I stupidly continue to try to beat her and finally notice after the multiple attempts, she has a Morlock lieutenant who keeps reviving her every time. And it's kind of tricky because the Morlock and lieutenant vanishes away pretty fast when she revives Meryl. And there's 4 of them, not just 1, 4. I end up failing and retrying this with a better, more optimized team, which I use Iceman, Storm, Wolverine, and Cyclops. This was a good strategy because Cyclops is able to snipe with his optic beam quickly each Morlock lieutenant down. This proved successful as Meryl is finally defeated. Meryl says the X-Men may have won, but you can't stop the G Nation and we will prevail. The X-Men try to tell Meryl the Brotherhood are liars and evil, and Meryl refuses to believe them until the X-Men tell her that if the Brotherhood were truly your allies, why did they not help her people with the GRSO soldiers who attacked the sewer tunnels just now? Meryl has no idea about this and finally shows her heart, saying that she wants no Morlock to be hurt. She agrees with X-Men, which their words remind her very much of the healer. She calls for an end to G Nation and to bring peace to her tribe. She thanks the X-Men for their patience and their guidance. And that mission is now complete, as the third act of the trio mission goes to the next X-Men team, where the Juggernaut is in the Muir Island facility trying to kill Forge. Though Juggernaut tries to catch Forge, he fails as Forge continues to teleport and flee from Juggernaut. The X-Men intervenes as a boss fight happens, and Juggernaut is resistant to mental due to his helmet, and not only that, he can, for a limited time, be resistant to multiple things, which makes him incapable of being harmed. It was a slow burn fight, but I do defeat Juggernaut at the end of the day. Forge says he has a special brig that can hold Juggernaut, and that once he wakes up, they will try to get some words out of him. After Juggernaut is put in the special brig and wakes up, The X-Men ask him who sent him to attack the Mutants Research Center. Without Juggernaut's helmet, he is unable to withstand any telepathic abilities that Jean Grey or Emma Frost would put onto him. Juggernaut, hating the mental telepathy abilities, caves in and says some anonymous joker hired him and paid him a big bundle of money to do the job. They ask him what he was paid to do, as Juggernaut says that he was supposed to destroy the Astral Gate, that he was chasing Forge because he figured he knew where it was. The X-Men tell him the Astral Gate is not in their hands, as the conversation ends pretty quickly after a few taunting words from Juggernaut. The X-Men regroups back at the War Room, where Cyclops says it's time to strike at the heart of the problem. Everyone in the X-Men begins to get super busy, either trying to find ways to get to Asteroid M or finding ways to save Charles Xavier from Astral Plane. And later on, Beast finally has something which seems to be a portal to the Astral Plane. The Astral Gate, as Beast explains, is a device that allows non-psychics to visit the Astral Plane. The team enters and lands into Xavier Nexus in the Astral Plane, where they find the doorway to Xavier's mind, but unfortunately it's locked. Shadow King seems to have fragmented his mind and will be unable to enter until the X-Men repair the damage. And that is when 3 gates appear, leading to what Shadow King took from Professor X. And I have to enter each gate to gather all 3 items and bring back to this altar to unlock the mind or door to Xavier's mind. Fight my way through Shadow Fiends to get the book, which is a symbol for knowledge, something Xavier values highly. After I get the book, I must go back, but blocking my way is an astral illusion variation of Pyro called Dark Pyro. It's a tough battle that needs non-energy attacks to defeat him, more so than not. I get the job done and make it to the exit, entering Gate 2, where I get my hands on the symbol for wisdom, but blocking my exit again is another variation of an astral illusion of none other than Avalanche, which is defeated. But then I get to Gate 3. I get the symbol for honor, and in the final astral illusion is Dark Blob, who is not just a beat up top type of boss. I had to destroy the statues around Blob, which gives Dark Blob multiple resistances, or should I say made him invincible. I destroy the statues, make them normal again, and defeat this fat boy, and afterwards I place all 3 items on the altar, which opens the large statue head of this gladiator's mouth, which is an entrance and who I assume to be Xavier. This is when the X-Men head into the place called the Coliseum, where we see a completely mind-controlled Xavier standing side by side with Shadow King. Shadow King has Xavier convinced he is an emperor and that a group of assassins who are the X-Men have been sent to kill him. X-Men cry out words saying if Xavier remembers them. Xavier hesitates for a moment, but Shadow King says that it is merely a plot meant to confuse him. Xavier has somewhat of a fight in his mind until he finally agrees with Shadow King to destroy the X-Men, and this is where Xavier sends out his greatest gladiators to fight the X-Men. A pretty fun boss fight, 4 versus 4, and after I beat them, Professor X is shocked they bested his champions, as X-Men say they are the X-Men and that they're here to save them. This is when Xavier finally snaps and remembers everything. Shadow King and Xavier vanish as the X-Men manage to clear Xavier's mind and decide to head back to the X-Mansion to see what the Cerebro can tell them. Back in the War Room, the X-Men are around the briefing as Beast explains the extrapolation of the Sentinels' flight paths, suggests that they are based at a facility in Central Europe. Beast suggests that they must infiltrate this facility and liberate a Sentinel guidance system sensor and a navigational controller. This is the same facility Magneto escaped and is most likely on high alert. So Cyclops tells the team to be ready for anything. I run through the facility grounds as the GRS soldiers from the outside, even taking out a few tanks on my way through as the team investigates the facility Magneto escaped from when the Sentinels captured him. The X-Men enter the base only to find out it not only has what they need. The base is actually a factory mass-producing Sentinels. I continue to run through enemies until I run into a lab tech, and he says in fear that he will tell the X-Men anything, please don't hurt me. The lab tech spills the beans saying this is a privately owned company, but that they're under government contract to manufacture the Sentinels. The lab tech says even more, saying General Kincaid is the operation of director of this. Now that the pieces come together, Kincaid was running the Weapon X facility and this facility, which definitely adds up that he is behind Operation Vigilance. More is spoken that Kincaid ordered them to make a new Sentinel model into full-scale production. The X-Men tell him where they could find a guidance system sensor, as well as a navigational controller, in which the lab tech says in the construction core. But it's in a severely damaged place that Magneto escaped from, and that the destruction set loose many early prototypes of the Sentinel that was just put into production that no one has been able to capture. So now the X-Men must travel to the construction core and not only get what they need, they must fight through multiple prototype Sentinels on the loose. And as we get to the final stretch of the prototypes, the door we need to go through gets kicked in by some man-made unearthly creature, and it looks as though humans have been melded into a machine, which the weird human robot-like thing says targets acquired. Primary objective, annihilation of mutant life forms. This is when you first run into the advanced Sentinels and find out that this was what General Kincaid was rushing into production. As I defeat them, I make my way deeper into the facility, where I run into the General Kincaid office. According to the documents on the desk, Kincaid ordered the construction of the actual gate, which puts into question, is he the one who told Shadow King to kidnap Ileana? Left with questions rather than answers, the X-Men go deeper into the base, where we find Gateway trapped in a prism of blue with a Morlock. The Morlock says that this prism is trionic energy, and that the powers are nullified by the trionic energy that's being pumped through the prism or cage, and that it was designed to keep mutants from escaping, and explains further that this is for testing, and that when they finish a new Sentinel model, they pluck a couple of mutants to make sure the machines can kill them, and that so far the Sentinels have won every battle. So the X-Men decide to save every Morlock captured in this trionic energy. And this is done by breaking each metal piece attached to the trionic energy that shuts down the cages. The X-Men shut down every cage, and Gateway provides the portal for the Morlocks to escape in, and as soon as they are saved, General Kincaid appears, and Kincaid starts to ramble on how he cannot trust their kind and that he's not shocked that they came to destroy his factory and try to take over humanity in his plan to fix humanity. Kincaid says he's not going to sit by and let this happen anymore, and that he will fight them by whatever means necessary. The X-Men try to convince Kincaid that humans and mutants can live together and that there's no reason to start a war. Kincaid still stands his ground and says they're dead wrong, leaving the balcony he's on, walking off. They chase down Kincaid, but he has blocked the way to him as X-Men tell Gateway if he can make a portal to catch up to General Kincaid. Gateway does just that as they enter through, and as they fight through destroying even more advanced Sentinels, they are once again left with another blocked passage, and without Gateway they have no way to catch up with General Kincaid. The X-Men decide to head back to the X-Mansion to figure out their next move. Back in the X-Mansion's war room, Cyclops says that they cannot wait any longer and that they need to go to the astral plane again to save Professor Xavier. And since Xavier is no longer mind controlled by Shadow King, they should be able to find him and save him instead of ending up in another bad situation against Professor X. Beast fires up the Astral Gate as the X-Men once again goes back in, and they fight through many Shadow Fiends until they find Xavier's helpless and trapped, where his mental power is entrapped in this diamond-like shape. The X-Men must break it free to free Professor Xavier, and they do just that. This gives Professor X his freedom back.
What? You've escaped? No matter. Now you will die, Xavier.
I'm no longer helpless, Shadow King, and I am a force to be reckoned with here on the astral plane.
Your powers are childlike compared to that of Shadow King. I will have my revenge.
Broken from his chains from Shadow King himself, Shadow King decides to take things into his own hands as Professor X and Shadow King fight in an epic gladiator coliseum. This fight is fun. Not only do you get to use Xavier as a gladiator, you get to get one-on-one time with Shadow King in a fight. Xavier prevails, and as he reaches his X-Men and tells them that this is all over and that Shadow King won't bother them again, at least not for a very long time. The X-Men leave the astral plane, saving Professor X, with Professor X also beating Shadow King in the astral plane. The X-Men are back at the X-Mansion where Cyclops speaks to Allison. She is vastly important in this whole plan, as Cyclops will need Allison's ability to control solidified magma. This will prove useful when the X-Men are on the X-Jet flying on their way to Asteroid M. Though Allison questions why get the gear if they need her. Well, Cyclops says she is their insurance policy in case something goes wrong and asteroids are in places they shouldn't be. Allison questions it again, thinking, is it really up to her? Cyclops answers saying she's the only one who can do it. Allison agrees to this backup plan, and now we are headed into the final mission, heading to Asteroid M. The team meets in the war room, where they strike a plan to reach Asteroid M and capture Magneto, where they then have to remove the asteroid shield from around the Earth. The team makes it, but the entrance is locked. They can't break through because that would cause a hull breach. So now they somehow need to get at the lock on the other side of the door. This is where Emma Frost comes in handy, as she can control someone telepathically from the other side, and she quickly catches the sense of Toad, who is nearby. She takes control of Toad and gets him to unlock the door. Emma Frost controls Toad to leave the vicinity, as the team is now inside Asteroid M. I fight through many enemies until I reach a room where a Morlock is. The X-Men ask the Morlock where they can find Magneto. The Morlock has no clue, as I continue fighting Acolyte elites and masters. This is where the X-Men approach Mystique, and she rambles on how X-Men just don't give up, as well as telling them that if they just gave her Allison in New York, all of this would have been much easier, as they only wanted her as a backup in case they weren't able to free Magneto, and that she's easily able to control the Gravitron like Magneto. Mystique then does the old classic where she spills the beans on what the Gravitron is and how Allison could use it, which, as stated previous, the Gravitron is able to move the asteroids in space. This is when Mystique runs off, as she leaves a big group of enemies to fight the X-Men. And I defeat the enemies and head to the elevator going deeper into the base. And this is when the whole lower base is alerted to the X-Men. A brawl through the quarters happens, and it's a slow burn through these enemies, but I end up beating them all with some patience as we get to Magneto. The X-Men try to resolve this with words at first, saying that humans and mutants can learn to live together. Magneto responds with saying how predictable they are, and that they recite Xavier's rhetoric like a politician running for office. The X-Men say that if he could see through his past and the anger from the past, that he would understand Xavier. Magneto says that his judgment is not clouded by outdated morals and sentimental feelings towards lesser beings. He goes on to say that mutants are superior and should not be forced to live among humans, much less live in fear of them. He states the X-Men are very wrong to try to force two completely different species. Magneto goes on to say that they would have made excellent additions to the Brotherhood, and it pains him to destroy them. And this is when the fight with Magneto begins, and he's very, very, very durable. I had to use most of my ultimate abilities multiple times to really damage Magneto, along with his henchmen that fight by his side, which one including Sabretooth, Mystique, and other enemies that intervene in this fight, kind of making this a boss rush somewhat fight. I endure and prevail, defeating Magneto and the Brotherhood, but the Sentinels are now attacking Asteroid M, and now the X-Men have another fight on their hands. As the X-Men fight off the Sentinel rampage, Asteroid M base heads closer down to Earth with no sign of stopping due to the Sentinels destroying partially the base. And according to the console, the Asteroid M base is going to hit New York City. Allison picks up and remembers that Mystique said she could use the Gravitron to move the asteroids like Magneto did. The X-Men all remember as well, as they have a new plan to find the Gravitron to stop this asteroid from destroying New York City. The X-Men find this room, but it's surrounded by advanced Sentinels, and not only that, the hardest enemy in the game, the Sentinel Platform Mark II. There's multiple of them, and there's so many that it takes me more members of the X-Men I have to take out to continue the fight through them, but I end up doing so and prevailing. But by doing so, General Kincaid appears in this huge robotic-like ultra Sentinel machine and says that it's the end of the line for the X-Men.
End of the line, X-Men. My plan is finally complete. Once Asteroid M obliterates New York City, humans will blame mutants and eradicate them from the face of the Earth. A cause I'm willing to die for!
And that his plan is finally complete, and that once Asteroid M obliterates New York City, humans will blame mutants and eradicate them from the face of the Earth. Kincaid is willing to die for this, because if it means saving humanity from mutants, and even if it means a few humans will be a sacrifice to this cause. And this is the final fight in X-Men Legend, and it's General Kincaid and a robotic Sentinel machine called the Master Mold. And goddamn, does this take me almost my whole roster to defeat. He's not that simple to fight. Not only are there exploding drones coming in and that do heaps of damage to you, this comes with you having to turn off the consoles around the area to remove his invincibility buff. And as you try to turn them off, there's Sentinels appearing out of the blue to stall. It's a pretty fun, tough fight, as I had to mostly use Nightcrawler to really teleport and blitz him, which makes me nearly invincible to taking damage with how fast Nightcrawler moves. My last team is Gambit, Jean Grey, Rogue, and Emma Frost, and mostly thanks to Emma Frost, I'm able to survive this fight, as her diamond form makes her defense near impossible to destroy. She takes such little damage that you can really tank through just about anything in this game if you level her up properly. Master Mold is defeated, and now Allison has her chance to use the Gravitron.
Kid, the Gravitron was built for Magneto. It could kill you.
That's a chance I'll have to take. Time to heat things up.
Whatever you're doing, it's working. Doing it, kid!
One last thing!
No, Allison! Wait!
Wolverine, what happened here?
Are you all right?
Allison! Allison, where are you? You had me scared there.
Hey, what's to worry? I'm an X-Man, remember?
Quite right. An exemplary job, Allison. In stopping Asteroid M, you not only saved New York City, but you prevented a war. A war that would have cost countless lives. Your unwavering courage in the face of overwhelming odds has proven that you truly are an X-Man. For X-Men are the stuff of legend.
Enjoy your small victory, Xavier, for the age of apocalypse is nigh.
After that exciting cameo for a sequel, it's all over, as we are greeted by the RVN News with Deborah Owens, as she states that the mutant leader Magneto is still at large, but is speculated as he has discontinued all terrorist activities. The X-Men also exposed illegal experimentation on humans at the Sentinel factory in Europe. This resulted in a shutdown of the factory and an inquiry into the Operation Vigilance, which financed the covert activity. General Kincaid, head of Operation Vigilance, is now in custody and waiting trial for crimes against humanity. The president has made a speech blasting Operation Vigilance and commented that if we are to move forward as a culture, we must learn to understand one another, human and mutant alike. The president closed his speech by commending the X-Men for all that they have done. This game truly is the greatest comic book game in my eyes. Not only did they perfectly show the X-Men, they perfected their mannerisms, the personalities, the voice acting, the villains to the deep themes and great plot that all connected perfectly. This is a game from my childhood I truly loved, and I had a blast playing this game. I truly believe this is a near perfect game and that I wish we got games as great as this. Raven Software made such a great game, and this all makes sense. Raven Software has made some of the best games, from Jedi Outcast to Jedi Academy to Quake 4. Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Thor, take care of those gunships. Spider-Man, draw them towards the stern. Sure thing.
X-Men Origins. Wolverine, Wolfenstein, Singularity, and their assistance with Black Ops 1 to 2 to Modern Warfare 3 and much more. I wish Raven Software could just move away from Activision and go back to making these comic book games, go back to making whatever they wanted, but it's never that easy, so I thank them for their amazing past games. This is truly a 10 out of 10 game for me and will always have a mark on my childhood in the 2000s.